And we're here again at Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 21. You shall not eat of anything that dies of itself. You shall give it unto the stranger that is in your gates, that he may eat it, or you may sell it unto a Gentile. For you are an unholy people unto the Lord your God, and you shall not seethe a kid in his mother's milk. No, that's basically talking about boiling a baby lamb in mother's milk for preparation. Now, for the reason that the lamb was more typical of Christ than any other of the animal kingdom, we can find a little bit in John chapter 1, verse 29. When Jesus went to the cross, all of these particular rules regarding eating were concluded. This is proven in Acts chapter 10. Now, regarding the vision given to Simon Peter. So these laws are actually done away with now. Verse 22. You shall truly tithe all the increase of your seed, that the fields bring forth year by year. Notes. If I remember correctly, I'll just go ahead and just say it flatly. Tithing means giving a tenth. The foundation for tithing was not given in the law, but rather some 400 years earlier with Abraham. He paid tithe to Melchizedek, who was a type of Christ, back there in Genesis chapter 14, verses 19 through 20. You can also see it in Hebrews chapter 5, verse 6. All of us are actually children of Abraham if you read Galatians chapter 3, verse 7. So that means that tithing continues even unto this hour. Now, inasmuch as Abraham paid tithe to Melchizedek, who was a type of Christ, tithing continues even under the new covenant. We are to pay tithe to help finance the work of God, which is the same as paying them to Christ. Verse 23. And you shall eat before the Lord your God in the place which he shall choose to place his name there, the tithe of your corn, of your wine, and of your oil, and the firstlings of your herds and of your flocks, that you may learn to fear the Lord your God always. And if the way be too long for you, so that you are not able to carry it, or if the place be too far from you, which the Lord your God shall choose to set his name there, when the Lord your God has blessed you, then shall you turn it into money, and bind up the money in your hand, and shall go unto the place which the Lord your God shall choose. Notes. If the Israelites lived a long distance from the tabernacle or the temple, which means that they could not drive animals that distance or take great amounts of wheat, he was to sell the tenth and then take the money to the tabernacle and purchase the animals there that were needed for the sacrifice. It's just a distance problem, basically. Verse 26. And you shall bestow that money for whatsoever your soul desires, for oxen, or for sheep, or for grape juice, that's what wine was, or for strong drink, or for whatever your soul desires, and you shall eat there before the Lord your God, and you shall rejoice, you and your household. And the Levite that is within your gates, you shall not forsake him, for he has no part nor inheritance with you. At the end of 3 years you shall bring forth all the tithe of your increase the same year, and shall lay it up within your gates. And the Levite, because he has no part nor inheritance with you, and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow, which are within your gates, shall come and shall eat and be satisfied. Now that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hand which you do. Notes. Now, the meaning of the third year is as follows. The tithe of the first and second years was to be eaten before the Lord at the sanctuary. What was not used and then only used a small part, the balance was given to the sanctuary. The tithe of the third year was for the poor and needy, including the Levites. Notes, and once again, the wine and the strong drink does not actually refer to alcoholic beverages. There's something entirely different. Chapter 15. At the end of every 7 years you shall make a release, and this is the manner of the release. Every creditor that lends aught unto his neighbor shall release it. He shall not exact of his neighbor, nor of his brother, because it is called the Lord's release. Notes. Now, this doesn't mean that the debt was no longer owed, but only that the debtor on the 7th year was not to be pressed for payment. As during the sabbatical year the land was uncultivated and the debtor consequently would earn nothing, it was reasonable that he should not then be pressed for payment. So every loan took this 7th year into account. Verse 3. Of a foreigner you may exact it again, but that which is yours with your brother, your hand shall release. Notes. In other words, it's meaning that this law did not apply to the foreigner. Verse 4. Save when there shall be no poor among you, for the Lord shall greatly bless you in the land which the Lord your God gives you for an inheritance to possess it. Notes. Now, the Lord wants to bless His people, that all poverty be erased and such, and if God's people will truly follow Him, rendering obedience, it will be erased because this is the will of the Lord. The 4th verse right here says so. Verse 5. Only if you carefully hearken unto the voice of the Lord your God to observe to do all these commandments which I command you this day. For the Lord your God blesses you as He promised you, and you shall lend unto many nations, but you shall not borrow, and you shall reign over many nations, but they shall not reign over you. Notes. In other words, Israel is going to be the top dog. If the Lord's people would carefully hearken unto the voice of the Lord, they would be the most blessed nation on planet Earth. Now, that was God's intention, but we will read that it regrettably did not happen. I should say it didn't stay that way. Verse 7. If there be among you a poor man of one of your brethren with any of your gates, in your land which the Lord your God gives you, you shall not harden your heart, nor shut your hand from your poor brother. Notes. Now, despite the promise of great blessing, regrettably, many simply would not hearken unto the voice of the Lord, but would rather hearken unto their own voice, or the voice of others. Now, in one way or another, poverty will always be the result of ignoring the Lord. Verse 8. But you shall open your hand wide unto him, and shall surely lend him sufficient for his need, and that which he wants. If it is to be noted, faith-filled believers are to be generous. Giving something away is the only proof that greed has not overtaken you. Verse 9. Beware that there be not a thought in your wicked heart, saying, the 7th year, the year of release, is at hand, and your eye be evil against your poor brother, and you give him not, and he cry unto the Lord against you, and it be a sin unto you. Notes. In other words, don't take advantage of the 7th year to refuse to lend money to one in need, just because it's the 6th year. Conduct oneself in a greedy manner constitutes sin. Verse 10. You shall surely give him, and your heart shall be not grieved when you give unto him, because that for this thing the Lord your God shall bless you in all your works, and in all that you put your hand unto. Notes. Now, if those in Israel wanted the blessings of the Lord, they must obey the Lord, seeking diligently to carry out His word. Verse 11. For the poor shall never cease out of the land, therefore I command you, saying, you shall open your hand wide unto your brother, to your poor, and to your needy in your land. Notes. If those in Israel wanted the blessings of the Lord, they must obey the Lord and seek diligently to carry out His word. And regrettably, this didn't happen. Israel's welfare program was the 3rd year of tithing the produce of the entirety of the land to be given to the poor and needy, along with the Levites. Not failing at this, and as well lending to those who were truly in need, one can readily see that the welfare program was generous. Well, and we must pick up in chapter 15, verse 12. Thank you very much.